seconds, the whole Continental GT experience was transformed. Welcome to the all-new Bentley Continental GTC. It just opens up literally a whole new world. My head is now connected with the clouds. So for me, the whole point, the whole purpose of a convertible is nothing more than to further enhance the connection with the driving experience. It is pure enjoyment portal stuff. You take the roof off, you have a greater sense of connection with the environment you're in. I conveniently find myself driving through the olive groves of southern Spain, and the smells in the environment, gorgeous hot air. It's 24 degrees today, and I'm in a W12, basically 630 horsepower, 900 Newton meters of torque Continental, when the roof comes off. I mean, how much better does it get? Now, I had the privilege of driving the Continental Coupe, the Continental GT, last year, and I gotta tell you, I was absolutely blown away by it. So much so that I have recently done a fabulous deal with Bentley to get my hands on one, which will be joining the channel next week. So I'm very, very excited. But when you take the roof off a car, it takes on a whole new life, right? Now, what I particularly loved about the Continental GT is the work that they've done on the gearbox. Now, this is, I believe, the world's first 8-speed twin-clutch gearbox. The previous Continental was a fabulous Grand Tourer, but I found when you got it onto amazing roads like this, you were aware that it is very much of the Grand Tourer DNA, whereas this seems to take on two lives. When you're on a Grand Tour and you're wafting along open roads, it's a wonderful cruiser, but it takes on a second life, and it amazingly disguises its weight so well. This car is over 2 tons, quite substantially over 2 tons. The development, the evolution versus the previous generation car is night and day. First of all, they've managed to engineer a twin clutch gearbox mated to 900 Newton meters of torque. It is huge, huge power. But the engineering marvel is making the relationship between the engine and the gearbox a smooth one. Previous generations gone by, they've been more conventional, automatic, almost torque converter style boxes, which are great when you're rolling on the open road, but when you want to get up its paces. And don't forget, this is the best part of 630 horsepower. When you can find yourself on a road like this, which encourages you to play with the dynamics of the car, I found in the previous generation, it was in fact the gearbox that let it down somewhat. Even the chassis in that car was pretty good considering how heavy it was. This car, the Continental GT, and obviously what has made its way over to the GTC, is an outstanding symbiotic relationship between engine and gearbox that has transformed the driving characteristics and dynamics of this car. The other engineering marvel, which might be taken for granted, is just how hard it is to make a twin clutch box suitable for a Grand Tourer. In short, twin clutch boxes are more suitable for higher performance sports cars. They tend to favor when you're on it and going quickly, but when you're around town, they can be a little bit jerky. Now, Bentley have made no secrets about it. They have admirably teamed up with Porsche to develop this gearbox, and they have absolutely nailed it. It's perfect for when you're cruising and going slowly like this, but when you get up it drops down a few cogs. Now I'm in manual in second gear. The pull on this, are we ready? It's amazing. Let's talk about how Bentley have managed to control over 2 tons of Grand Tourer when it comes to camber changes, undulations, heavy braking on roads like this. The car overall is 5% stiffer and 20% lighter than the previous generation, which obviously contributes nicely to the way this thing flows through corners. But the witchcraft and the magic is in the electronic architecture that is keeping this car almost, dare I say it, roll free. Having said that, the electronics on this car are still managing 2,400 kilograms of Grand Tourer. That is something. That is quite a mass of car that you're throwing into corners. So how does it stay so flat, and how does it stay so comfortable despite the fact that the car is 5% overall stiffer? Well, it's thanks in part to their dynamic ride solution, which is configurable down here on the Drive Select rotator wheel, but also they have this electronic anti-roll system, which is proactively reacting to the conditions of the road and and the amount that you are sending this car into a corner. And honestly, you thread it through this road, this would destroy an Alpine Pass, and you could do it in the glamorous confines of this resplendently trimmed interior with the roof down, listening to the birds tweeting if you so wish. However, if you would like to mask the sound of rustling leaves and poultry in the undergrowth, you can listen to that monumentally powerful W12. It also brings me onto the brakes. This car has the largest production brakes in the world on a road car. And you need it. I mean, when it's got that amount of performance with that amount of weight, you need some stopping power, and stop it does. It's not so much as braking as if someone has thrown out a parachute from this rear canopy here, and it is just dragging you back to tranquility. It's quite the achievement. Steering. Now, obviously, in a Grand Tourer, steering feel isn't necessarily the top priority. However, even with a fully electronic steering rack, I have to say, when you do get on it, you can lean on the car and you do know what the front end is doing. Front end, if you push on too hard, is going to wash out a little bit, but back off just a tad with the throttle mid-corner, and the nose does point in delightfully. So to be able to experience, I would say 90% of the performance of what the Continental GT offers, but with more enjoyment by having the roof off, is a magical feeling. It truly, truly is. In its segment, I'm trying to think of anything that offers this amount of luxury with this amount of performance. It's hard, right? There's nothing that really offers that, does it? Now, for me, this car is all about enjoyment with other people. Now, the passenger might as well be Lord Fauntleroy. He's having the time of his life in the passenger seats. However, the rear seats, I gotta tell you, even though there is more legroom than the previous generation, if passenger and driver want to be comfortable, that's only really space for more baggage, which is convenient because with the addition of the retractable roof, there has been some reduction in the usable space of the boot. I think it's now down to 235 litres. So it is a little bit compromised in terms of it being a Grand Tourer that you might want to take a few more extra bags. Having said that, if it's just the two of you, it's not going to be a problem. And there's Isofix in the back. So if you do want to bring little one along with you for the open top joyride, this is the car for the job. Now, when you think of Bentley, one word synonymous with this brand, as cliche as it might seem, is quality. Bentley have elevated the interior experience to the next level, just interacting with the switches. This particular specification, so this diamond quilted stitching here, over 2 kilometers of stitching is required to create this embossed, dare I say it, 3D effect throughout the car. And there's knurling. One of my favorite features is the things that you don't see. So for example, as you drive the car, pretty much every button that you interact with has this knurling on the outside. Things like the volume and even the temperature and fan control dials, they're also knurled. So everything you interact with has this consistent theme throughout. What I particularly like is the knurling that you don't see, which is on the inside of the door handle here. And it's a lovely touch. So when you open the door, it's typically the last point of contact that you have with a car as you exit it. As you put your fingers behind the door handle, that it's also knurled. So not only is the aesthetic theme running throughout, as small a feature as it is, almost summarizes everything about this car. It's quality through and through. And one of the iconic features of the interior of the car is, of course, the tri-sided rotating screen. It's an optional extra, but first of all, it's very cool. But second of all, it's interesting that one of Bentley's points of view as to the reason for the rotating screen is that in years to come, these might be sitting on Concorde Elegant lawns across the world when the next Bentley Continental is launched, and this technology will ultimately by then be out of date. But if you roll that screen around back to its veneered wooden fascia, it is timeless. The other thing, and this is where Bentley truly represents luxury, is that they have acknowledged that in this day and age of us being glued to our phones, having very busy, chaotic, loud, hectic lifestyles, one element of true luxury is distraction-free environments. So to be able to rotate away and vanish all of your screens and just enjoy the artisan bauble of that W12 engine, it's automotive escapism at its finest. The only thing I do think that looks a little bit naff is the windbreaker that sits across the rear seats here. Like, I get it does a good job, and it does do a good job. I've driven it with it down and up, and believe me, you want it up. You want it there. I just don't think it looks that great. It looks a bit dated somehow. Maybe there's another solution that might have been engineered, but maybe not. I don't know. Splitting hairs. And on that W12 engine note, as always, thank you so much for watching. I shall see you next time. Ciao!